Welcome back to the Safe Space with Tabby M, and I am your host, Tabby M. Today, in episode 9, we are covering childhood trauma and how it bleeds into adulthood, and how you, along with God, can change that narrative. So, yes, today we will be profiling none other than Elton John, the rock star, and also Jeffrey Dahmer. Yes, I said it, Jeffrey Dahmer and Anna Dalvey. First, we'll be profiling my own childhood. Let's pray. Dear Lord, thank you so much for the opportunity to do this. Be with me as we shoot the podcast. May you speak through me. May you help me to convey the message that is needed for myself and those that are also watching. Protect us as we do this shoot. May your angel that excel in strength, love, and light protect us now. In Jesus' name, always. Amen. Okay, so let's get to it. I grew up in a family of 5. My dad adored my younger sister, and my older brother was and still is worshipped by my mother. I was, and I still am, the unwanted middle kid. Both my parents made it no secret that I was in the way. I spoke too much, I was too loud, too colorful, and I was the ugly duckling. Now, let's just sidetrack for a bit. The ugly duckling, we all know, is an old folk tale based on this duck that was born into a family and was awkward looking. The mother didn't like the way it looked like, the actual shell. When it was born, it was too big. In the end, it turned out it was not a duck, it was a swan. The egg had rolled down from another nest and then into this family. So, like myself, I am a swan, not an ugly duckling. So we'll get back into that later on. Anyway, even when I achieved great things, this seeped into the kind of guys I would end up dating, the kind of friends I would choose, and I always tried to prove that I was good enough. I longed to belong, and I always longed to be accepted. My father was unfortunately a drunkard. He's better now, but he was a drunkard back then. A cheating husband and extremely abusive, both physically as well as emotionally. We were all terrified of him. I'll make an example with homework. I was terrible at math, right? So I'd be like asking him for help in April, and he would turn all the way back to January, find my mistakes, to ask me why am I so stupid, and then he'd like slap me. So his thing was to slap a lot. He had this thing of waking me up as Tabby for some reason. He'd come back home around the early hours of the morning, like the wee hours, around 3, 2, and then he'd wake me up. And then he would just start going on, had a rant about how he regrets having children, blah, blah, blah. And then he just keeps speaking about shit, basically. And I'm like, why am I waking up at 3? I've got to wake up, in the next 3 hours to go to school. Maybe this is why it also affects me now. Like, I have sleeping problems. I'm not saying that's the reason why. But then I'd go back to bed. And sometimes my mom would hear him, and she'd come and try to stop him, and he would hit her. And then she would go back to bed, and he'd continue with his thing. Then he'd pass out on the couch, pee on himself, or just like knockout. Then I would just go back to bed. It became the norm for me, unfortunately. He was constantly driving drunk with my sister and he would drive through red robots. We were terrified, of course. And he was just laughing all the time. He always told us how he constantly regrets having children because all his money goes to us. The irony is that my mom spent most of her money. She invested most of her money in us, not him. But anyway, so we all did ballet. When I say we, my brother, my sister, and I, we all did ballet at Eastside College in Johannesburg. He constantly forgot us. Yeah, like he'd just forget us. And we somehow find our way home. I can't remember how we got home. Only to find him drunk and eating chicken licken that he purchased for himself alone. We also like to go to soccer matches. When I say we, I mean my brother and my sister and I. And he'd forget to pick us up. Like, we often had to walk and hitchhike to get home. His abusiveness became the norm. It's something that we expected. We didn't invite it. We just became the norm. When I used to do runway modeling, he often would make me wait until 2 o'clock in the morning or later, and then pick me up with one of his many girlfriends. They're both drunk, of course. Then drop me off outside our home in Eldorado Park, and then he'd drive off and say, bye, see you later, right? He would return home drunk early hours in the morning and put the radio up or blast music just to wake us up. As to why he did that, I don't know. My mother at some point moved out of the home temporarily because of his physical and emotional abuse. She moved to a small flat in Yeovil where we'd go and visit her sometimes. because she was constantly being abused. She left us with him, hoping that he would change. And then he convinced her, he's sorry, you know what I mean, I'll change, I'm so sorry. Then one day she returned. I can't say how long it was, but a couple of months. I was young. He behaved, of course, for a short period of time, and then he would continue with the physical abuse. He later was then forced to step up, or to stop rather, because when we grew older, we also moved out. I always resented my mother for staying. They were unhappy, and it bled into and onto us. She deceived him, and many years later ago, we paid the price. I in no way am justifying domestic violence, but we need to trace it back to childhood and also adulthood experiences. Both my parents had a tough childhood growing up, and they would constantly relate to us as children the abuse caused by their own parents. In both cases, it was mostly their fathers, right? Adding to my mother's deception, this didn't help either. And of course, neither my mom or my dad seek therapy to deal with their past traumas and their current marital issues. I don't personally believe that they intentionally tried to make me feel necessarily unwanted. I was born into the family after things started to sour. My brother was born first, I was second, my sister was next. I was also very different. I always felt like I was living in a stranger's home, if that makes sense. But I didn't, and I still don't belong to them, or my brother or my sister. I went through 4 years, still ongoing, of intensive therapy, and only 2 years ago did I really accept myself. Did I learn to love me for me? I had serious low self-esteem issues. My self-identity was completely defined by others. Modeling helped me a lot because I could pretend to be special, you know? I could pretend to be anyone I wanted to be. I have completely healed from all of that. But at times I do get triggered, I'm not gonna lie. Then I need to check myself again and remind myself of who I am. Okay, so now we're gonna step into profiling Elton John. Elton John, if you've watched the movie Rocket Man, if you haven't, please do watch it. Obviously, there are some interesting scenes there, but look at the core message. I've watched Rocket Man several times, and the first time I watched it, I broke down in tears because I could relate to everything in that movie, right? I could relate to his mom always putting him down, telling him he's not good enough. I could relate to the dad who resented having him and loved the other kids, right? I could also relate to not feeling wanted. I could relate to the fact that I was used by somebody in the industry who promised me to help me out and then took advantage of that. And the part that I'm still waiting to relate to is him actually meeting the love of his life and having 2 kids with that person, right? So I'm still waiting for that part. But looking at someone like Elton John, I never even knew one of his songs, to be honest. Now I know most of them because Rocket Man's actually a musical. But the fact that he was so brave to showcase his life in an autobiography while he's still alive about what issues he had. And unfortunately, like myself, I've mentioned in other episodes, he was a drug addict, heavy cocaine use and other drugs. He was an alcoholic and a sex addict. So I wasn't a sex addict, but I was heavily drinking. I wouldn't say I was an alcoholic, but I was definitely a drug addict, like I mentioned in one of the episodes prior to this one. And currently he is freed from that. He's been sober for a lot of years, and his only addiction now is shopping, so it's a better one. It's the less the evil. I have, unfortunately, like I mentioned, have gone through these addictions, and I no longer am plagued by them, but there were times in my life where I would relapse, especially when I felt like shit. I would find myself taking a line or just drinking alcohol, not just like 1 or 2 glasses. I would binge drink to escape. It was never about the enjoying or the enjoyment of alcohol. It was always about what it would do for me. I used it as a crutch, you know. So when I realized, and I still realize now that, hey, whenever I feel triggered, I'm like, it's because I'm not okay. When I am okay, you won't see me doing those things. It's when I'm not okay. So I'm still a work in progress. Yes, I'm sober, but there are times when I have fallen back and forth. health. And my prayer to God is that I need to get back to a place where I was 100% sober and I had no issues with falling back into habits like that. Okay, now let's profile Jeffrey Dahmer. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, oh my goodness, no, this is taking it too far. Well, it's me, so duh. Jeffrey Dahmer, I watched his series on Netflix, but besides that, prior to that, interestingly enough, I'm very curious about people's minds, hence my degree in clinical psychology, right? And I'd watch this guy on YouTube, the actual Jeffrey Dahmer, and in his interviews, they're asking questions like, what would you do, you know? And he had this poker face where he's like, I would just get the guy to come back, I'd drug him, I'd like cut him open, eat his heart. And there's literally no expression on his face. And I'd be like, this is interesting, it's a bit eerie, but I'm like, why is he not? And the lady would interview him, she's like, would you still be doing it now if you were out in the streets? He's like, probably, because I have a compulsion, right? So prison helped him with that. My point is, then Netflix released a series on him. Watching it is not easy, but towards the end, I'm like, thank God, because this person, they profile everything he did, which was horrible. I'm not going to get into everything, but obviously he was a homosexual hiding, and he would sleep with these men, and like I mentioned, he would eat them. I know it sounds gross, but he would literally eat certain parts of their body, you know, their hearts, whatever. It's not about the gory side of him. I'm trying to get back to the root of the episode. So it also shows you as a kid that his mom completely didn't want him. His mom was more interested in his younger brother, and his dad was out in the streets with another woman. They both left him alone at some point. They didn't have time for him. So I'm not condoning. I'm not saying that it's okay that Jeffrey Dahmer became this monster. In the end, towards the end, and it's based on a true story as well, because he was in prison, didn't have access to alcohol, because he also mentions in his interviews that he did these things when he was intoxicated, because when he was sober, obviously you can't do the things that he did. Well, some people can, but the point is he couldn't do them. And in prison, he was rehabilitated by being sober. He started attending church services. He started singing hymns, and then he had a pastor friend who was actually stuck by his side until the day, unfortunately, Jeffrey Dahmer was actually murdered in prison. And he would tell this pastor friend that, hey, during these sessions, I had an altar assigned to Lucifer, the devil, and I'd worship him, and I'd use the bones of all my victims and create like a little altar for him. And this pastor, instead of being freaked out and judging him, saying, you gay and you're busy eating people, he listened to him and he patiently showed him that, look, this is not how things are done, you know. We're meant to love people, not to hurt them. Also, he tried to find out why he became that person. In the end, Jeffrey Dahmer decided on his own to get baptized in a tub in prison, and he was freed from his obsession, his compulsion, as he puts it, because unfortunately with sin, it is a compulsion, it is a snare. Speaking from experience, I mean, if I look back at my life and the podcast that I've mentioned, things I'm going to mention in the future, when I engaged in these questionable behaviors, at first it freaked me out, because I'm like, why am I doing this? But obviously I'm under the influence of drugs and alcohol and other things. So I just indulged until I kept on indulging to a point where I became so numb to what I was doing. I felt nothing about it. I actually started enjoying it. And that's what happens with sin. It's a downward spiral. And Jeffrey Dahmer, unfortunately, also felt that. Fine, maybe his sins may be worse than most people's, but the fact remains is that it's still the same container. It's still the same pool, the same drawer that was used. So again, like I said, not saying that it's his parents' fault that he turned out to be that monster, but unfortunately, childhood is... Look, I want to get into this. Let me get into it quickly. So I have a degree, I'll keep mentioning, clinical psychology. Between the ages of 0 and 7, right? A child, an infant, is the most impressionable. They liken a child's brain to a sponge. It sucks up everything. Liken a child, so think about a garden. If you feed whatever you are growing in your garden, roses, fruit, vegetables, you need to tend carefully to whatever you're growing. Think of farmers as well. If you don't tend to what you're growing, it will wither and die. What more the mind of an innocent child? There's no child between 0 and 7 that you can say is evil. How? The caregivers, the caretakers, the guardians, the parents are the ones that are in control of how that child turns out. Because at 7 years old, that child's personality, that child's way of thinking has been finalized. It's done. It's now been set in stone. That is how that child defines themselves based on what they have been given from the outside world going in. And as the parents, you have to nurture that child, that infant, and instill the right self-belief systems. So growing up, it will actually come back to them, because people don't understand that whatever you experience as a kid, it comes back to haunt you later on as an adult. And those are facts. I'm living proof of it. And the people that I'm mentioning now, I want to look into Anna Dalvey shortly, okay? Again, she was a con artist from Russia. She conned a lot of the elite New York people, businessmen. And watching her series on Netflix as well, looking back into her childhood, you'll find that her parents also cut her off. You know, they were not emotionally there for her. They found that she was strange and weird. She was very creative. So my point is that let's not take for granted what we do to our children. You know, I'm a mother myself. My daughter's 6, turning 7 next year. And there's times when I have made mistakes as well and said things to her I shouldn't have said. And immediately when I recognize that, I go back and I say, I'm so sorry, my baby. Mommy didn't mean to say this. And I reinforce that with something positive. So we cannot take back the words we've said, but we can fix the mistakes we have instantly made by going back and reinforcing the negative comments with positivity, if that makes sense. Now, I would really love for you to repeat after me. I'll say each sentence twice. We are doing affirmations right now and mantras. Okay, so let's start. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. This is found in Psalm 139 verse 4, Psalm 139 verse 14, if you need to go back and look at it. Next one, I am enough. I am enough. I am special. I am special. I am unique. I am unique. I am loved. I am loved. God made me in His image and paid in blood for me. I belong to Him. God made me in His image and paid in blood for me. I belong to Him. How others perceive me is entirely subjective. It is their opinion. I am entitled not to care. Let's go slower. How others perceive me is entirely subjective. It is their opinion. I am entitled not to care. And we are done with the affirmations. Now, I'm not saying these should be your personal affirmations, but I would incorporate them into my daily routine, because the days that you feel down and you've got these, you'll remember that you are enough, that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. You are not a mistake. God thought about you. It's not your fault that you happen to be born in the wrong family, but you can always get out and redefine how you see yourself. Okay, now let's look at how to heal. Okay, very important. Surround yourself with people who celebrate you and not tolerate you, even if it is yourself. You need to check yourself. What are you saying to yourself? I'll say that again. Surround yourself with people who celebrate you and not just tolerate you. Very important. Positive self-talk. Positive self-talk is very important. So I'll make an example. Things like you make a mistake, you're like, oh, I'm so stupid, right? No, you're not stupid. I made a stupid mistake, but I'm going to fix it. So learn not to define yourself by the things that you've done, okay? So it's very important. Self-talk needs to be positive. We all make the mistake, but the importance is to notice it and immediately rectify, because the brain believes whatever you tell it. For example, this is me smiling. My brain thinks I'm happy, even though I may be so depressed, you have no idea. The brain believes whatever you tell it. Hence the importance of affirmations, mantras, positive self-talk. Next one. Write down mantras and affirmations like we did the exercise right now. Repeat them every morning, please. I know we all have busy schedules. try your best to memorize them. It is so important, because why is memorizing important? If you don't have time to read them off the wall, you can say them as you're brushing your teeth, you're in the shower, getting dressed. Do you understand? Start your day right. It will filter into everything. It starts becoming habitual. You start to shape your entire world. You start to shape how you see yourself, and thus you change your own narrative. Understand that abusive people are also hurt. Don't allow the cycle to continue with you. Please. Remember that God loves you very much. Seek therapy. I urge you strongly. Seek therapy, counseling, or a life coach. Get your brain rewired. Like I made an example with the affirmations, how to heal, everything I mentioned. Eat healthy. It does make a difference. Junk food, junk brain. Drink lots and lots of water. I'd recommend about 2 liters of water a day. Get REM sleep as often as you can. I aim for 4 to 5 days a week. I can't get it every night. We mentioned with Pastor Nandi in one of the episodes, I think it was episode 5 or 6, that REM sleep is rapid eye movement sleep, okay? Between the hours of 10 and 2, the body releases a whole lot of melatonin. It isn't the type you can buy in a bottle, okay? It's only given from God, and it gets released, a flood of melatonin, which helps you. You need that. You need it to rest and function and be happy. So it's a very important hormone. Try your best to be in bed by 9:30, slow your day down, and then by 10 o'clock you're in bed, at least until 2. Then you can wake up at 2 and do whatever you want, but just get that melatonin into your system. It's important. It's rest. Take walks in nature. When you walk around in nature, you look at a mountain, look at a tree, the beautiful birds, the flowers, you start to forget about your own problems, because you're like, wow, this is beautiful. You start to appreciate the handiwork of your creator, and that tells your brain that, hey, I'm at peace. It's very important that you do that, okay? Learn to be still. We live in such a hectic era. Honestly, I wish I grew up during the Shakespearean era, because we are so busy. We have tons of apps being birthed every single second. There's no time to actually breathe. Learn to be still, whatever that means for you. Find time away from social media, TV, or phone. Center yourself. Learn to be still. I would recommend being still in the Lord, spending time with Him, just talking to Him, offloading and speaking to Him and telling Him about your day. Like I said, take a walk in nature, but don't be on your phone. I know you want to take pictures. I do it as well, but don't interact with people if you can. Just try to incorporate being still at least once a week if you can, please. Most important, trust God always. So yes, we are done. I said it would be a short episode. So I want to go back to the ugly duckling real quick, right? That story for me, like I said, has so much meaning for me and to me to this day, because we have to understand that all of us belong to each other. We're all one huge ecosystem. So it doesn't matter if you are born into a family that rejects you, okay? Don't take that personally. I've had to learn that it's not about them, okay? Sometimes we are just too big, too bold for certain people. We're special, we're favored, we're loved. I'm not saying they aren't loved by God. And when you have that light around you, it tends to irritate people who don't have that own light themselves. So try to find people, which is what I'm currently doing, that are drawn to that light, right? Can benefit from it, and others who also bear that kind of light. And it'll happen when you pray about it. Lord, direct me to people who will celebrate me. I can celebrate them, people that I can help, God will do that for you. And don't take it personally. Pray for the people that who have downtrodden you, who have spat at you, metaphorically or physically, who have hurt you, because they are hurt. They're not okay. Because if you are happy and you had light, why would you want to hurt someone else? You know what I mean? You give what you have, is what I personally believe. So try to work on yourself and understand that you are not them. You are unique. You are an individual. Just do the right things. Take these steps. Try to change your life every single day. You need to work on yourself. You can't rely on other people to change, and you hope and cross your fingers that they'll change one day. You need to change for yourself. Rewire your own brain with the help of God and therapy, reading the right material, practicing, like I said, the things that I mentioned, the mantras, affirmations. Try to seek for yourself as you would treasure. You know, if you're looking for a chest of treasure and gold, you would look for it earnestly. Seek God earnestly. Seek yourself earnestly. You know, try to rebuild yourself. Don't allow other people to define who you are as a person. It's very, very important, because all you'll do is reinforce that in your mind, and you want to rewire your brain. So understand that, yes, childhood trauma definitely does bleed into adulthood, but it doesn't have to define you as a person. You can and you will change your own narrative. And by so doing, when you have a seed, or you have seeds, and obviously I mean children, you can now teach them the tools that you have learned. You can now be different towards them. You can celebrate them. You can make them feel special. My child thinks I'm a superhero, legit. I'm not. She thinks I am, because of how I am towards her. I always reinforce positivity and good things, you know. Now to a point where it's so funny. The other day, I actually literally cried, right? I was like, naughty mama. And she turned around. She's like, no, don't say naughty mama. You're a good mama. You're not a bad mama, you know? So I can see the lessons that I'm teaching her are now coming back to me, and so it goes. So try to find people. There aren't that many, but you'll find them. I promise, I found them. Try to find people that believe in you, even when you sometimes fail to believe in yourself. Find people that support your dreams, that support who you are, that are positive. Try to find people, walk away from people that are your cellmates. Okay, when I say cellmates, I'm speaking figuratively. Your prison cellmates. A lot of us think we have friends, and they're not really friends. If we're taking drugs together, getting wasted together, doing stupid shit together, those aren't friends. Hey, if you take away those substances and vices, what do you have? If you still have a friendship left after you remove the habits, then fine, maybe they could be friends. But personally, I don't believe in things that are detrimental to your growth and your body. If you're hanging around doing that with people, that's all you ever do, those aren't friends. Friends are people that will help you grow in every way, whether it's spiritually, mentally, physically. They will help you level up. They will not be okay with you guys being stuck at a certain level, which means sometimes you've got to be okay. Actually, every time you've got to be okay with quantity versus quality, which means you might only have 2 good friends only, and that should be okay, versus having 20 people. I used to be the kind of person, I was always constantly surrounded by people, and now I'm like, no, I've had to take a seat back and be like, Tabi, reassess what's important, you know, get back to self. Do I need this person? How are they helping me grow? How am I helping them grow? You know, and I have had to cut people off, and it's nothing personal. It's just that you're not helping me with the path that I am on, and the path that I am on is narrow, but also it entails blessings from God. It entails me helping other people. It entails me looking at myself from a positive lens, and that is very, very important. So yes, we're done with the episode. I hope you guys have had a wonderful year. I can't say I have. I've had my ups and downs, but lots of love from the team. This is the last episode for the year 2023. If we happen to shoot another one, then hey, I guess we do. But this is, as far as we're concerned, we'll be continuing with the podcast next year. God bless you and your family members. May you be safe. May His angels keep a hedge around you until the end of the year. Lots of love from me and my team, and God bless. Mwah.